Hello. This webinar will be part 1 in a series that will take you step by step through bringing a project into Corridor Modeler for use with Roadway Designer for 3D modeling and existing pavement cross-sections. My name is Kathy Kassar with MDOT Engineering Support Services. So to begin, we're going to take a look at preparing the topo for use with Roadway Designer and the existing templates. As with any product, the data that you receive is only as good as the data you put in. Well-prepared topo is the first step to achieving a quality result. The first step is to copy the topo file. This is important because as the project progresses, the base file will be altered for plans production. Elements will be broken, placed on the removal level, etc. You do not want this to happen with the data that you're going to be using for your GeoPack work. At some point it would be nice if we could skip this step, but for now it is the best way to work. Once we have a file, and I'll call that a GeoPack plan file, we can begin to clean up some of the issues that will cause incorrect results with Roadway Designer, such as changing the symbology and breaking some of the line work. Once those issues have been resolved, we will then import the necessary elements into Corridor Modeler for use with Roadway Designer. So why do we have to do this import anyway? Well, the whole reason for Corridor Modeler is to get the GeoPack and Plan View data into a format that Roadway Designer can read. As you may know, Roadway Designer began as part of the En-ROADS modeling process, and in this version of GeoPack and Power GeoPack, Roadway Designer has not been fully integrated into the product. So we have to convert it, so to speak. This is very important to note because if you make changes to the plan view graphics, geometry, surface, or even the DDB, these changes will not be reflected in Roadway Designer unless you update the imported elements through Corridor Modeler. Please take note. You want to close Corridor Modeler and Roadway Designer when making edits to the MicroStation Plan View graphics, geometry, or TIN files. In some cases, you may have to close MicroStation or Power GeoPack and relaunch the product for the changes to be recognized. This is especially the case if you are changing your TIN files. You also want to be sure that you have a GeoPack project defined and a working alignment definition defined as well. This helps Corridor Modeler work the best. So once you have everything ready for the import, we can then load Corridor Modeler and set up the user preferences, import the necessary alignments, surfaces, plan graphics with the drawing preferences or styles. After each plan view graphic import, we will test what was imported by using the display option. This will ensure that the line work we intend to use was translated correctly for use in Roadway Designer. So we'll pop out to MicroStation or Power GeoPack and we'll take a look at the steps that we discussed. Alright, so this is some topo that we have that I'm going to use for this particular webinar series. You'll see here, this is the base file that came from Survey, and there's a number of areas that I know we're going to need to make corrections to get this to work with the existing templates that we have in our template library. So what I did is I went ahead and, as I said, I made a copy of the file. I call that the GeoPack plan file, and we're going to open that up here in a second. And what I actually copied, or what I brought in, was the information that I know I'm going to want to use from my existing cross sections. So what I brought in was essentially going to be my existing shoulder, my existing edges of pavement, any place I had maybe some curb line that I was going to need to have into my existing templates, and then elements that I knew I was going to have to be somewhat changed, but also used from my existing template. So, because I want my existing ground cross sections to be representative of the pavement section that this project has. So you'll see that I brought in a lot, basically the information I knew I was going to need. I didn't need everything else, and I have referenced the stationing. So this is the topo that we'll do some cleanup on. And the reason that we need to do cleanup is in order to get this to import correctly, there are certain elements that we need to edit to do that. So we're going to go ahead and run through the process of preparing this topo in order to use it with Corridor Modeler and Roadway Designer. So first off, I don't know how many of you pay attention to your task menu here on the side. You'll see that there are, and I'm in the Civil Workflows task, so there's a series of tasks that you can have. And there's civil geometry. I typically will be in the civil workflows. And once you're in the civil workflows tasks, up here on the task manager, you'll actually have your project manager. You can get to it here. Of course, the other way is the GeoPack project manager tools. And I have one already created, but you really want to make sure that you open a project. I'm going to edit this project very quickly. You'll see that I have my working directory set. It's very important that you set the distance to 4 decimal places in order to work with Roadway Designer down the line when you want to see your super elevation. If it is not set to 4 decimal places and you set that to 2, then what happens is you'll get only the whole number super elevation slope in your Roadway Designer. So this needs to be set to 4. Okay, and also to your Koga preferences, the only one that you really have to set is the GPK directory. I set the other ones to be the same, but the only one that's necessary as well is the GPK directory. So you want to make sure you set those, and then you go ahead and open that project. So you really want to have a project defined, and then you'll open your project. You also want to make sure that you create a working alignment definition. Again, this should not be your untitled run. And then in the define options with Roadway Designer and Corridor Modeler, you really want to define your centerline chain, your active chain of your alignment, and then the DTM. So you should make sure that you have picked your tin and your chain in your working alignment definition. The rest of them aren't necessarily as important, but those are very helpful, and they tend to make the package run a little bit smoother. Alright, so then we'll open Corridor Modeler. Again, that's also on the Civil Workflows tab here. So we'll open Corridor Modeler. And the first time you launch Corridor Modeler, or if you've deleted the rdwizard.rsc file, as in the April 2013 update, the document that came out then that talks about creating a new Corridor Modeler project. If you've done that and you've deleted the rdwizard.rsc resource file from the Geopack folder under the data directory, as indicated in that setup document, this should be blank on the first time you come in with a new project. Okay, so you can delete that rdwizard.rsc file under C Data MicroStation V8i Geopack resource files. This is where it should be on any computer that's set up to run the M.01 workspace. And you can safely delete this file when you're beginning a new project. When you do that, then this dialog becomes blank. Alright, which is very helpful especially if you've been doing lots of different projects. Alright, but you've want to make sure that you've been saving your files before you do. Alright, so again, when you come in and it's blank, you want to set it to even. You'll select the location of your template library. You'll set the location of where your tins or your DTMs are. Alright, and then once you have that, under the DDB, you do the import. If you haven't imported before, for this project, you'll need to do the import. This is a per project deal. If you have, then you can go ahead and re-import if you need to. You only need to do this if it changes. You'll get a warning if you've done it before and it needs to be updated with the new DDB based on the M drive, or your consultants would be your standard drive. So you'll need to have that imported. Under the DTM, you want to make sure you're loading your existing tin. Alright, this is the tin that comes from Survey, and you want this to be a copy of the original tin that Survey provided. So what'll happen is Survey should send you that information. They're going to send you a tin and a DTM. You want to keep those stored in a separate folder. Make a copy of the tin and put it into your working directory. Once you have that copy, then you'll want to load that here into Corridor Modeler. So we'll add that up and import. Now, if you've done this before, you'll get a do you want to do it again option, and that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit alright. If you haven't, you'll just go ahead and do the import. What you don't want to do is use the DTM that's coming from Survey. Those are not quite functioning correctly in Corridor Modeler, so you want to keep those original files in a separate location, and then let the tin here be imported and create the proper DTM that Roadway Designer is going to need. Alright, so the next step would be to import the geometry that we need. And this only has the one chain, and this was a, we'll say it's a non-legal alignment. And I'll also grab the existing profile, and this is again just the existing ground profile that was sampled at a spacing of no more than 5 feet. So when you create your existing ground profiles, you want to make sure that, again, if we do it, we're going to make a new run. Never use the untitled run, and I'll just call it exist for a minute. So we'll load that up, and then when you do it, you want to do it based on of course the offset of 0, and then the increment of no less than 5 feet. If you do it really tight, or you do this at a 0 and you get every iteration, then your existing ground profile, if you're going to run these, becomes very, very full of points, and you get too many points, and then it's going to take too long to process, or it could potentially crash because you'll run out of memory, or it just takes a very long time. So you need to sample it at no less than 5 feet. Okay? Alright, so then we grab that, and of course if you're trying to import multiple profiles, if you hit the shift button, you could actually select multiple profiles. So if you had a bunch of ditch profiles, for instance, that you wanted to add along with this alignment, you would just hit the shift key and select them. Of course we only have one in this particular case, so we'll add that up. And then once you've added it up here, then you can go ahead and hit the import button, and it will create that in the ALG file. So if you have geometry, and the geometry shown here, and you do not see it in the ALG viewer in this dialog here, then it has not been imported. Okay, that's very important. And if it's not imported, if it is not in this section of the dialog, it will not be available to you in Roadway Designer. Alright, the next step is going to be Plan View Graphics. Now before I go any further, I want to make sure we do a save. So we'll do a save as, and I'll just go ahead and save as, and you want to save this RDP file, and I'll replace mine because I've had one created already, and you want to make sure that you do that for each and every project that you're working on. That's very, very important. If you're switching between multiple projects, this is the way to make sure that you get the correct data for Corridor Modeler every time you work. If you don't, what happens is this dialog is going to get populated with a lot of information from those different projects, and you're going to end up with things that don't belong in there, that are from a previous project, or new stuff that mixed with old stuff, and it becomes a mess. So you want to make sure that you save and you load these files each and every time you're using Corridor Modeler. Alright, if you don't see the name of your RDP file here, then you have not loaded it. The thing is this dialog comes it'll pre-populate with your previous session, so it gets deceiving, but you need to make sure you see the name of that RDP file that you're working with loaded when you're doing your work. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and bring in some Plan View Graphics into this dialog here, and what I want to do is I'm going to want to bring in my edges of pavement. Alright, so you can do that based on a feature, you can do that based on a selection set or symbology. Because we don't really have the DDB set up, you're not really going to seek by feature. That's a DDB feature. You're going to seek it by symbology, or you're going to just go ahead and pick them. In this case, what I want to do is I'm going to do symbology. So I'll go ahead and I'll pick my symbology style, and then I'll pick my level name, and then match, and then I will select my edge of pavement. And this is right now listed as a shoulder, existing shoulder HMA edge, but it's actually my edge of pavement. So that's going to cause a little bit of a hiccup. If I hit display, see you can see there's sections here that don't have that particular symbology. So alright, so this is one piece that doesn't have that. So we'll go ahead and we'll use that, and I will use a chain, and I'll use my chain, and I'm going to say the left side, and then I have to give it a seek distance. In this case, if I did a measure perpendicular from my alignment out to this point here, I'm about 23 feet. So probably, I think it's a safe seek distance if I don't seek any further than probably about 25 feet. And the reason is you don't want to pick up your intersections, or those radius or driveways, for driveways or intersection radii. So we're going to do that. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it existing edge of pavement, and we'll give it the direction left. And then we have to assign a drafting style. Now, for the purposes of our existing template, these need to be generic. These are the generic. They don't really care about material. I'm not concerned about that. I just need to make sure that I'm getting my pavement edges. Alright, so then we'll go ahead and I'll add it up. Alright, so then when I hit display again on that, what it will do is it will show me all of the elements that are included in that selection set. Alright, so that allows me to see where I might need to make some corrections. Everything looks fine on that piece. Now you'll see here, if I don't include that, whatever my default width would be in my template's going to be what that is. But I would rather just go ahead and we're going to do some modifications to the topo, which is another reason why it's good to have a copy. So I will select this to the symbology style, and then I'm going to change the attributes of this line so that now if I do the display again, it should pick up that line. Alright, now it's also important that we make sure that there are no overlaps and that there are no gaps in your edge of pavement lines. And the reason is if it doesn't have a line to follow, it will essentially give you nothing. You'll have the base default template, or basically zero width, depending on whatever your template is set at. And the existing template in the template library is actually set for a 1 foot width so that it will stretch. So you'll get a 1 foot wide piece of pavement. Alright, so we're also going to here go ahead and I'll modify that attribute, and I'll do a display on display. And you'll see now I've picked that up, and then here's where it gets interesting, because I've got this bit of curve here going around, a curve going around the corner, and I've got this joint line coming across. So I probably want my existing pavement in my cross sections to follow this joint line. So we're going to go ahead and change the symbology on this so that we can pick that up. Okay. And then we'll come over here and we'll of course change the symbology on this line, and then we'll double check that that's picked up. Okay, and then we'll come up to this next piece up here, and again change the symbology on that. We'll change that symbology there. And then we'll change this one also. Okay, so you'll see now that I've gotten all that, and I'm not picking up the pieces going around the corner. And the reason is that because I have done my seek distance at 25 feet. Notice it picked up all my edges of pavement, but it did not go around my corners and things like that. And the reason that is because those fall outside the seek distance. The total radius does. Okay, so we'll on display. Alright, so we'll come down here and I'll change this to the right. I'll change this to the right. Again, I'm going to keep for now that same seek distance, and I'll add it up. Once I've added it up, then I can hit display on that. And you'll see again I'm missing certain pieces. And the reason that this piece, if I highlight this piece, the reason that this one is not picked up is because it's going all the way around and beyond my seek distance of 25 feet. So I'll have to break this line in order to get it to pick up where I need it to. So we'll do a break point element here. And you'll see that I now have two pieces. And there, and one there. And if I display again, and now it picks it up. So now we have that, and of course we're not going around the corner. Now, if I wanted to pick up part of this intersection to be in my existing cross sections of the pavement section, I could always have broken it back here and moved this line somewhere else. So it really does depend on what you're trying to get shown in your existing cross sections. Same goes up in this area. If I wanted to show part of it, I could have broken it back here and broken it here and moved this line out if I was going to maybe only be doing maybe a widening or something, or an intersection, or I wasn't going to be doing much to this intersection. Depending on what you want to show, you can clean up your line work accordingly. And you'll see up here, I'm not picking up anything in this section. And again, that's because my symbology is different. So we'll modify this. And here I have a choice. I could go ahead and follow this joint line here, and that would be where my existing ground or my existing cross sections are cut from. But sometimes I want to pick up what's going on in this area. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to pick a spot, maybe the midpoint of that radius, and I'm going to put a spot out here that connects to this taper. And the reason being is I want to make sure that I pick up this in my existing cross sections. Alright, so I'll break that line there, and looks like this symbology I'm going to have to break this line. So again, I'll come over here and I'll break that. And then we'll have to do the symbology change. And we'll do a display on display here. And now you'll see that when I do my cross sections, it will identify this line will be with my edge of pavement. And again here, I'm going around the corner, so we'll have to break this line. And that's already there, and then I'll have to change this symbology and this symbology. And then I would do a display and an undisplay. And we see here that I've got everything selected there, and we'll go this last piece and everything has come in there. Alright, so now we've got our existing pavement prepared. The next thing I need to do, of course, is bring in my shoulder. So under the symbology, we'll reset. I'll match my shoulder, my aggregate shoulder. And I'll hit display, and we'll see everything that turns on with the aggregate shoulder symbology. And you see again, I'm going around the corners, and we'll have to do some cleanup on those. Well, that is all ag symbology. It's the correct symbology there. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is we have the symbology selected, and I'll just come in and I'll change that to ag shoulder. And I'll do the left side first. And I'll change my symbology again here. I want to use my generics. So there are some, and for the shoulders as well. And you don't want to do these again by material. You want to do these for the existing shoulder pavement point edge, and these have been specified in the existing template instruction document that's provided for you. You'll find that in this folder, it's either going to be the M drive or the whatever your standards drive is, and that will be under V8i Corridor Modeler, Template Library, and then the existing template instructions. Alright, in this document here, if we scroll through it real quick, it tells you exactly what level symbology you need to use in order for the existing template components in the template library to work correctly. So you must import based on this symbology, or you'll have to edit those components in your template library in order for that to work. Again, that's going to be found in the standards directory, V8i Corridor Modeling Template Library. That is the document that you want to use. Alright, in order to figure out what symbology you're looking for. Alright, so again we're going to go ahead and do our importing now. So we'll look again on the left side first. Alright, so we have our aggregate shoulder, and of course it's going to be further out than 25 feet. So if I take a measurement, you'll see that it's about 22 feet here, in some places 20 feet. Alright, so we'll have to look at, if I measure out here, so we're going to make this 30 feet. And we'll have it search 30 feet out to the left and see if that works for us. And again, anything that is connected around a corner will not highlight. So you'll see it's all on the right level. However, in this case, we've got pieces that are going around the corner. So in order to fix that, we'll have to break it. So we can decide where it is that we want to break that aggregate shoulder, so that as it finds my edge of pavement, that's where it ends. Drawing the shoulders, we get ready to do intersections. So we'll go ahead and I'll break it there, and if I hit display and then undisplay, you'll see here that now I've picked up those pieces. There we are into a curb section, so we don't need any, and then here again it has not picked up, and that has begun going around the corner, so I'll break it there and then redisplay, and you'll see there that now I've picked up that piece of aggregate shoulder. In this case, where this is a driveway, this is a giant drive, where would you want to pick up that aggregate shoulder? It really gets into a drive, I think, about there, and then this is more drive related. So in this case, I probably would leave that off and not have it draw me aggregate all the way out there. And then here, gosh, hasn't picked it up because again I'm going around the intersection, and I've gone out beyond my 25 feet. And then I'll probably have it draw my aggregate shoulder. In this case, I'll probably have them draw it to here. Just because I didn't do this is an intersection, so I didn't have it pick this part up, this flare, so might as well not have it draw aggregate shoulder way out there if I'm not setting my pavement all the way out there. Again, these are choices you can make depending on what you're going to quantify, what you're doing with your individual project. Are you widening? Are you doing a reconstruct? And what elements do you want to be included in your existing pavement cross sections that you're going to want to do your earth quantities off of? That's what drives this whole deal. Alright, so the next side we'll do the right. Change it to the right. I'll add it up. And we'll take a look at what's then brought in on the right side. And again, here we know the symbology is correct, and I'll use the break point here, and I will break down here, we'll break it there, and I'll double check and make sure that everything came in. Alright, so we'll go that far with my aggregate shoulder. In this area, because I broke it back there, I'll probably to somewhere about in here for that aggregate shoulder. Since I brought it back there, I'll probably want to bring it about there for aggregate shoulder. We'll do a display and on display. And then here, I will break it, probably break it there at that point. Again, you can always change it. It's just line work. So if you change your line work, it will then be reflected, of course, in what you do here, so long as you're going to do the re-import process. That's the key. Alright, right now all we've done is enter some information into the dialog, but we haven't actually imported it yet. This is still just a loading up screen, so we're loading up our information, but we have not actually put it into the product yet. Alright, so again, this is part of a driveway, so I'll probably break it there. And then we have nothing more there, and then this picked up that whole piece. Alright, so that is my aggregate shoulder, my edges of pavement. Alright, the last thing we're bringing in will be the curb sections. There are several pieces of curb here. Alright, so we will go ahead and I'll change the symbology. I'll do a reset, I'll do a match. Match my curb symbology, and I'll hit display, and I'll see that all that curb is highlighting, which means it's all on the correct level. Okay, so we'll undisplay so that they don't stay highlighted. And then, again, I'll change my label here. This is a chain name. These have to be unique per side. If they are not unique per side, it won't let you add it up. And again, we'll have to go find my curb and gutter all back. That is the generic. No, we're not going to do a seek on this one. And the reason is because I don't want to pick up everything here, and the islands are going to cause a little bit of a headache. You cannot have a closed shape on your import process. So we'll change that from seeking, alright, and we're going to change that to selection set. Okay, and the reason I want to do that is I want to be able to be very selective on the pieces of the curb line that I'm going to pick and bring into my template. So again, I'm going to break here. I'm going to break my curb, and I don't want to pick up the piece going around the corner. I want to stop it. I'll do nearest point. I want to stop it about where I'm ending that point there, and then the same over here, and I'll do nearest point again. I want to stop it right about there, and then there. Now here I've got this little gap, and if I don't connect that, if I don't fix that gap, and we'll do it by matching my element and adding a line in here. If I don't fix this gap, what happens is that when I come through and do my existing surface model, it is a model. Remember, I'm not doing criteria-based cross-sections, or I'm only modeling at a particular station. It's going to create it for the whole thing, so I want to make sure that I don't have little gaps like that. Okay, and then here we'll break this one here, and we'll do the same. We'll break it just before it begins to flare out. And we'll break each one of these. And there, like I said, you can't have closed shapes, and they always come closed from survey when you're doing an island like this, but I don't want closed shapes in my in my selection set. And here's of course where it gets interesting, because when Roadway Designer, when it's actually processing, what it does is it goes from perpendicular from the alignment out. So in the case of something like this, it would process here, but I don't want to, it can't pick up all of this back here because you can't have more than one line that it's seeking for. Like this would cross it 3 times, which it won't allow you to do. So I have to be picky and choose what line I want to go ahead and import here. And do I want to bring in this spillway into my cross sections or not? I'm going to bring this out to here, and I'll do one more line, again perpendicular from here to here, and then we'll extend that out to here for a minute. And the reason is this is probably, if I was going to break it, I'd want to break it back here, and I'd want to break it, okay? And the reason I'll do that is so that I get points here that I'll see the spillway in my template, but I don't actually have to have that whole thing, and it's not going to create a problem for me when I try and do my importing. Again, here I'll probably just pick it up to there, pick it up right before the radius begins. And then do I want this island or not? Maybe I'll pick up a small piece of it just so I know that there's an island there and there's some curb. Alright, so again, like I said, I'm going to do a selection set. And so I'll pick up this piece, I'll pick up then this piece, pick up my island sections there that I created. I don't want any of that. Pick up that piece. And then we have over here, we've got this little piece. Well, we didn't pick up any there because that's all approach. Looks like we forgot to break here, so we'll break it. And I'll add this piece. I don't need that. This one, my little piece in the back. I'll pick up this one. My island, and then my little piece there of curb. So now that I have my selection set, and I have it my label name, and I can go ahead and just add that up. Alright, and then we'll of course do the same thing for the left side, for the right side. So we'll make a right side name. Okay, again here we'll have to break it, and I'll break it there and there. Then do I want into this island? Maybe, maybe not. It's mostly part of a driveway. Maybe we'll put a little piece in so I get an idea. There's another point there, maybe just so I know there's a piece of curb there. I'll put that one. So now I'll do my same thing. I'll make a selection set of my little pieces of curb that I'm going to use on the right side that I want in my existing pavement cross sections, and I will go ahead and add that up. Alright, once I'm satisfied, I've got all of my elements. Clear my selection set again, and unfortunately you cannot increase the size or change the size of this dialog box, but you can see that you've got your drafting standards in here as well as this option to store. Alright, so if this checkbox is on when you hit the import button, it's actually going to go through and create these elements in your ALG viewer. Right now we don't have them here. Again, like I said, if they're not in the ALG viewer, they will not be available to you in Roadway Designer. So I'll go ahead and hit import on these, and it will go ahead and it will process through this list. And if it comes across any issues where I have overlapping elements or multiple elements in the same perpendicular location, station range, it will give me an error message and anything like that. So you can't have any overlaps. So in this case, it did import everything correctly, or at least it was able to from a software perspective. Alright, again, I'll go to my ALG viewer, and now you'll see that all of them are showing up in my ALG viewer. Alright, so once I've done that, I typically will go through and uncheck all of my store options, and then I will hit save. And the reason is the next time I come in, if I want to import something new, I don't want it to go through the process of re-importing all of the line work I've already done if it hasn't changed. Okay, that's an important thing for speed. If you don't want to be constantly having to have it check all of the elements that you've already done that haven't changed, then you just uncheck this store option, and when you go to import, you'll import whatever is only checked. All right. Now, if something changes, if you were to change any of this line work, what will happen is the next time you come into CorelDRAW Modeler, if you have not done an update, those elements will be turned blue. Okay, so the name will be written in blue, and that's supposed to give you a notification that something is different from what you have in your ALG viewer, and that's actually in your PlanView graphics that you've stored. Okay, so you'll get it blue. If it's deleted, a lot of times it'll be red. Okay, now it's only going to happen if you make a change when CorelDRAW Modeler is not open. Right? If you make a change while CorelDRAW Modeler is open, those color changes of the name don't happen. Alright, so if you make a change while CorelDRAW Modeler isn't open, when you come back in, you'll get a warning that your PlanView graphics do not match, and then you'll look at this dialog and you'll see them either blue or red, and it'll tell you what is different. Okay. Alright, so that we've done the importing, we've done our cleanup, we've verified our ALG, and we'd now be ready to go ahead and build the template. That concludes part 1 of the existing template series. Again, that was just covering the PlanView graphics, importing them correctly, making sure that your topo was set up and prepared properly so that you'll be able to create proper existing pavement cross sections using the existing components that have been included in the template library. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to email the m.powergeopack support@michigan.gov email address. Thank you.